Helen Jones.
BBC Radio Merseyside.
Our story for our final hour together. There may have been some good news in yesterday's autumn statement with the cut in national insurance payments, but today the news is less positive. The energy regulator Ofgem has announced that from January, the cost of gas and electricity will go up by 5%. This means that households in England, Wales and Scotland will pay £1,928 a year for the average annual dual fuel energy bill. Joining us now is Peter Owen, who's the Chief Executive of Energy Project Plus, which provides people with information and support on how to be energy efficient to reduce their bills. And thank you, first of all, Peter, for being with us.
Hi, Helen. No, thanks for having me on.
So let me begin then by just asking Peter, just getting my notes ready here. Hold on a sec. Yes, just to start with, we're all acutely conscious that the cost of energy has shot up over the past few years. Why does it continue to be so expensive?
Well, the primary driver for the price rises was the lack of gas through the invasion of Ukraine and what have you, and also lack of storage of gas in the UK. Which has been partly addressed because we've brought some storage facilities back online, and sort of the market has sort of stabilised a bit. But the underlying principle is still that the wholesale gas prices are still a lot higher than they were 2 years ago, and that's the primary driver behind. That's Ofgem have stated today. That's the primary driver still behind the high prices and this increase of 5%.
And how does the energy price cap actually operate then? Is it the maximum a customer will pay?
No, it's not the maximum customer will pay. That always is reflected by how much gas or electricity we use. It's a cap on the price of what we use. So if we use more, we'll pay more. If we use less, then we will pay less. But it's the average user who is officially declared as someone who uses 2,700 kilowatt hours of electricity and 11,500 kilowatt hours of gas a year. That average user would pay £1,928 from January to March. Now, of course, the obvious solution, therefore, is to try and reduce what we use. But of course, we're coming into winter now. I suppose it's a mixed blessing, shall we say, in that we're going into the heating season when we're going to be turning our heating on, and the prices have gone up by 5%. 2 years ago, it was we were nowhere near these prices, and it came as a huge shock last year. But hopefully, people have started to stabilise a bit and understand and plan for the price of their gas, electricity over this winter. Those people on low incomes or in poor housing, they struggle a lot more than people who are what we would class as able to pay, who've maybe got that little flexibility in their household budgets to meet increases. Some people are literally at the end of their tether now, so any price increase makes life a lot more difficult for them.
And Peter, I want to ask you about standing charges then. Will they be affected?
The standing charges actually this time around have stayed as they were. But it's a huge conversation, and alongside the announcement of the price cap increase of 5%, Ofgem have announced that they are doing some work around standing charges. And there's a consultation out at the moment that anybody can respond to about standing charges, because the issue about standing charges, they're about £305 a year for gas and electricity together, which doesn't sound much, but if you're a very low user, a single person in a well-insulated property, you still pay that same £305 as someone who, spends £5,000 on their gas and electricity. It's a fixed cost. And so what the recognition is that low users effectively are disproportionately affected and pay more in proportion to their use. And a low user can often be a low income person. So there's talk about how can we do this better, and this is what Ofgem are looking at the moment. And one of the options is, rather than have this fixed charge, I say, of £305 a year, it's to actually add it onto the unit rate. So where you're paying in the new price cap, say 6.89 pence per kilowatt hour for your gas, you might pay slightly more just to meet the cost of the standing charge. But what that potentially does, it then shares the load more on those high users, and those low users don't pay as much as they might do otherwise. It's a difficult one, of course, because those fixed charges are designed to meet the fixed costs of the electricity and gas system. So all those cables and those pylons, it's quite windy out there at the moment, isn't it? They've got to protect against high winds and fix them immediately when cables come down. That's all part of what the standing charge is paying for. It's also paying for when companies go bust. The cost of that is shared across all the utilities, and that ultimately gets added onto our bills as well through the standing charge. So moving it into a flexible way of paying through unit rates doesn't automatically work the same way as it does now, and that's the complication that Ofgem have got to try and work their way through.
And I wanted to get your update on the area from a listener who's got a prepayment meter. What's the situation for them? And what's your advice regarding, we hear a lot of customers switching between energy providers, or how practical is that for people who are doing that?
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of prepayment meters, prepayment meters are work for some people, and it's not just an imposition on people on low incomes. Some people like the fact that they can budget ahead, but the problem with prepayment meters, of course, is it literally is pay as you go. If you don't put some money into the meter, then you don't get a supply. Your gas or electricity will go off. So if you're facing financial hardship and don't have any money to put onto the meter, your lights do go out. Now, that's not a good position to be in, particularly if you've got children or you're a vulnerable person. We heard the horror stories last year and over the summer of suppliers going into people's homes and installing prepayment meters where it was totally inappropriate to do so, where there were vulnerable residents, because some people, if they've got medical equipment that runs and needs electricity to run, it's iniquitous to be trying to put them on a system whereby the electricity might stop. So Ofgem has recognised that and put in place, sort of regulations with the suppliers that they can't do that anymore. But prepayment meter customers still pay, sort of slightly more than they do for, say, a direct debit customer. And so it's the market is moving to try and match those prices and make them the same, but they're still not quite there. But don't forget also those people who pay what we call on receipt of bill. A lot of people still pay, they get the bill through the post every quarter and pay it at the post office or whatever. They pay more, it's, I'm talking, sort of £100 or so more a year, just because they're not paying by direct debit. So there's sort of variations in the system that, we would like to see standardised. And in regards to switching supplier, we have actually started to see some fixed rates that maybe £50-ish less than what the price cap is. Most suppliers are operating at the price cap, so there's not been much reason other than for customer service to switch supplier, simply because you'd be paying the same wherever you went to. But there are moves to fix supplier, and that becomes important when we start to try and sort of project forward. The suggestions are, it's going up 5% in January, but the suggestion, it's a quarterly change. So in April, it's suggested that it's likely to go down sort of a similar amount and then stabilise a bit. So for the next sort of 6 to 9 months, you're probably going to be paying, about the same as you're paying or we're paying now. So if you're happy with that situation, knowing that the prices aren't going to skyrocket, now of course we can't project what might happen in terms of global politics or
Sure. Peter, just need to
gas
jump in
supplies.
because we're running out of time. Just to ask a final question then for listeners who maybe be struggling, sadly many customers struggling to pay their gas and electricity bills right now, and even more so as we get nearer through these next couple of weeks through to January. What should they do if people can't pay their bills?
Okay. The first thing anybody should do if they're struggling to pay their bill is speak to their supplier, because they need to inform them that they're struggling. Otherwise, the supplier won't know. Then the supplier can then consider what options are available, including putting some protections for vulnerable people in place, so that they won't be chased for bills and that sort of thing. And then also talk to agencies like ourselves, Energy Projects Plus. We're a charity. We're here to help people reduce their fuel bills, but also to help people in financial difficulties and see what financial assistance may be available. Some suppliers do potentially have fuel debt write-off schemes and the like, and some councils also might be able to assist through the household support funds. So reach out to us or to CAB or any other agency like that. Can I give our free phone number?
Please do, Peter. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's 0800 043 0151. We're open 9 to 5, but you can leave a message outside of hours as well. Just leave a message if we're not able to answer, and we will get back to you and see how we can assist. But we can do things like home visits, help you understand your fuel bills, see where you're using energy, and see how maybe we can reduce it as well. So, we're here to provide absolute practical advice and support to people across Merseyside and Cheshire. So it's available to everybody in across Merseyside and Cheshire.
Wonderful. Going to leave it there. That is Peter Owen, the Chief Executive of Energy Projects Plus. Do get in touch if you know of concerned family members, loved ones or mates and neighbours as well for the support available by Energy Projects Plus.